Hey, welcome to episode 3 of the Mary Magdalene series. We are talking with Chloe Mercer today, and I swear to you, this episode will not disappoint. She's got some amazing insight into embodying your human form and answering the call of your soul. And just as some of the other ladies I've interviewed and will continue to interview for that matter, their paradigms may completely be out of your construct. In other words, new language, new ways of talking about things and putting words to things or ideas or concepts that are probably unfamiliar to you, which is all right. So I just always encourage you to take a deep breath, check in, listen in, and see how it feels in the seat of your soul, because that is where all truth lies, and the body does not lie either. So I just want to remind you to share this podcast with your soul sister friends. And we have this whole groundswell movement happening with a lot of women who are awakening, and it's quite beautiful and lovely to behold and be part of. So I know that some of the things I share and some of the people I bring on, I'm very careful in selecting them because I know that they have so much to gift those who are in the process of awakening. Continue to visit my website, cherieburton.com, for more updates. I actually am in the throes of planning a soul retreat October 24th through the 26th at the Zermatt Resort in the beautiful Heber Mountains of Utah, Heber Valley of Utah. So more to come on that, and that will be posted on my site, or you can email me for more information, cherie@cherieburton.com. But let's listen in with Chloe, who, by the way, I will be doing a retreat with at some point. She's from England. Our interview was done across seas, across oceans, but this one is special. I love England. It's close to my heart, and my pilgrimage journey with Chloe was beautiful because she had some integral pieces that I was searching for that I didn't have awareness I was searching for. And so you're going to love her. She's a beautiful yogi, and she's a very soul-based, wise teacher. I believe eons above her chronological age. She embodies love, and you'll be able to hear it in her voice, and you'll also be able to notice and observe her wisdom, which is quite powerful. All right, I have got Chloe here, and she's coming at us from England, which we were just talking, and I'm like, her voice is like elixir to my whole being. I love it. So start saying stuff, Chloe, because your accent is amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, well, just for some context for our listeners, Chloe and I connected in England last December on an Avalon Priestess Pilgrimage, which, for those of you who listened to my interview with Hira Hosen about exploring the mysteries of the feminine, Chloe was co-facilitating that Avalon Priestess Pilgrimage with Hira. So I met these women, and Chloe in particular I was like, who does she remind me of? Who does she remind me of? And it came to me that Chloe totally reminds me of my daughter, Savannah, who's 20. And I think that's why I just love you, Chloe, because I think like she's going to be like you, or something's going to like evolve, or you guys are pretty much the same, the same soul. But anyway, Chloe, our topic, and I just think it's beautiful, your journey, because it's just so unique in terms of you didn't have, I would say, the same, and you've shared this with me, the same programming, or you call it filters, that a lot of people had about Mary Magdalene when you were growing up. And that sort of opened up for you to have a whole new experience with just no triggering or emotion around it. So I would love for you to just take us through your journey of how the Magdalene came through for you. And, especially if you didn't have that programming or have any ideas or preconceptions about who Mary Magdalene was and is, and her essence and whatever, how did that come through for you in your life?
Yes. So as you mentioned, I felt like when this core essence of the Magdalene consciousness came through to me, it felt very natural. And I'd say that throughout my life, this presence has been around me because it feels very familiar. And then about 12 years ago, I went through a personal trauma And through that trauma of losing a little girl, a baby, I got initiated into an aspect of me, or the multidimensional aspect of me, that I hadn't remembered. And what was incredible about the time was that obviously through this difficulty on a human level, I felt very held, and the energy of this holding was very warm. And what I would say was very feminine, very grounded feminine. So through that course of time, I very quickly, within those 3 days that this all happened, I received visions. I had my own vision quest, should we say. And I had this circle of women around me. And they came to me as the Sisterhood of the Rose Sisterhood. And there were key archetypes within the circle. One that stepped forward and that has always been there and has said within me that it's always been there is that of Maria Magdalena. And as I said, I didn't have any programming. I didn't have any triggers. I didn't have any sense of distrust with this new information coming through to me, or so-called new information, this new experience of having this type of spiritual connection and communion. All I knew that this being, this consciousness that was coming into my life, it had to be there for a purpose, because of what I'd lost and what I was going through and what was coming in. So timely. So going back a little bit to where I say I didn't have the programs, I grew up around Christianity, and I knew some of the stories. When I met Mary Magdalene in this way, for me, I just knew that I was connecting to this true essence of this incredible, incredible woman who walked upon our planet just as the Pursuing Age began. So, yeah, on the simplest form, she came in as this incredible high priestess within me to remind me of my true nature. And I gifted people that I meet in just a raw experience that life brings us, that the gifts that are also in that deep, deep, deep underworld, the dark moon.
The womb space, the cradle of creation. It's really interesting because I knew about the loss of your baby girl, and I also lost my firstborn baby girl in a very interesting way. Not through death, but I placed her for adoption because I was single, alone, kind of abandoned by the father. And I wanted her to have a better life. And I have a great relationship with her now. And she's actually the age I was when I had her at this stage. And we have a really beautiful connection. But the grieving was an initiation of sorts into my true nature. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. To me, there's kind of a saying that we have, at least with my culture and church, that there's like an Abrahamic test or an Abrahamic sacrifice where you literally put something on the altar in an act of surrender, and a gift from the divine comes back to you. And it's sort of like the gift is more about your own, it's a spiritual gift. It could be a spiritual gift, but it could be a knowing, or it could be a new mission, or an advancement in your spiritual maturity. And so what you're saying is, what I hear you saying is that, you lost your sweet baby, and what came through was like you said, more of like a dimensional aspect of yourself that you didn't know existed. And in other words, you didn't know your own strength, but you maybe even opened up kind of a spiritual portal to let something new come in because of that loss. I'm curious. I'm curious about the encircling of these female beings, or what you were starting to see and feel and be embraced by. How I mean, sometimes it's hard when you try to put it into language. So I understand that. But can you take us through that a little bit? I mean, whatever you feel comfortable with, because I understand it's very sacred to you. But I think it would assist many women who maybe feel alone or unsupported because of some of our programming, especially about patriarchal programming. And that sometimes we feel spiritually abandoned, especially in our hour of darkness.
Yes, no, this definitely is a big story that many of us play out, that we're not supported, that we're not loved, that we've been abandoned in these times. And really, I mean, very symbolically, as you said, it's going through such an initiation. It's a high initiation of the Sacred Rose Mystery School, these types of experiences. That's all I get, is this sense of the Isis lineage just coming straight through, and one's chosen it. Sometimes it's very difficult, but really, all we experience from life, we can come back to this sense of self-responsibility and taking this step to really embrace that we're creating our reality. I think this really helps us through these ups and downs, whether it be our menstrual discomfort, whether it be feeling deeply triggered by people that we just have to be around. We are being asked at this moment in this massive transition and change on our planet by these incredible avatars of Mary Magdalene, the Magdalene consciousness, and the Sisterhood of the Rose, to really honor what we are creating in our reality. So I got given this experience where there was something so deeply precious and pure that I knew in that moment. I don't know what it was. It wasn't anything intellectual. I was not going to allow this experience, so beautiful and pure, to be total devastation and for me to not be able to live. I knew that I had this mission that was coming through me. And so this circle of sisterhood, and I call it the Rose Counts of Light, they were just present. Now, everybody's very different. We perceive things very differently. Some of us are auditory, some of us very visual. And sometimes we don't really know until we've gone through these deep heart, body, womb openings. And everybody will experience this in this way. But for me personally, what happened was that I felt that I went deeply into the holy chamber of my womb, of this space of the divine mother, of the divine feminine in oneness. And I almost just felt like in that deep grief, my vision just opened. So I saw it. I didn't necessarily read anything. I didn't read anything at that time. It was literally a vision from within me. And I knew in every cell of my body, I knew in the blood of my body that I was being held. And this group of sisters, they were wearing white. And so since then, I've kind of done a little bit of research and looked into that and seen the different orders that exist within. But in that moment, I was surrounded by these incredible women and beautiful beings as such. Maybe I didn't notice them as whether they're male or female, but they were just really present. And then since then, I've had this incredible meeting with different parts of this Sacred Rose Mystery School lineage, which Mary Magdalene is a rose keeper of, and is very much part of this rise in consciousness that's taking place. And really at that time, she awoke the Magdalene flame within me, and then that has been maturing over these years and opening and flourishing and expanding in this eternal breath of life.
That's so beautiful. What I think is really significant about what you're sharing is, and I would say in contrast to what I experienced in placing my baby girl on the altar and going through the depth, is that I too felt very, very held, because I had certain kinds of programming. I could only say it was Christ or God or maybe angels, right? But like you, I mean, that was 25 years ago. So like you now, as I reflect back, I'm like, I really feel like there was an encircling of feminine beings, because some of them could have been my ancestors and some of them could have been angels. But when you're talking about not like, I didn't let myself explore that because of my programming. Does that make sense? Like I try to intellectualize things. And what I love about people like you is you just let it, you just allow it, and you don't try to put some kind of, dogma to it, or make it be right or wrong, or it's just, you just let it flow. And so you were given probably more. You were given a deeper understanding, and probably because too that you had this mission to awaken the sacred rose mystery, whatever consciousness, Magdalene consciousness within other women in the future. One thing that I remember very specifically, so I had this baby girl with me for 5 days. Her name's Wendy. Her middle name is Cherie, after me. They, so I held her, and all of that bonding happened. And then 5 days postpartum, I left her, and I left the hospital, and she went to another family. And so I was held for a while. And then what happened? I mean, I felt like, oh, there was that initiation, or there was that Abrahamic test, and I did such a noble thing. And then the humanness took over, and I entered a depth of just absolute, utter, devastating, soul crushing grief. And I remember I was clutching her hospital bracelet and her blanket and smelling it, and just kind of being angry with God, like, why would you ask this of me? Why this? Why me? Why now? And basically what came through is, I need you to feel this part. I need you to feel this so that you can succor my daughters in the future. I need you to feel this darkness. I need you to feel this loss. And as soon as I got that, it was like conscious suffering. Like I wasn't shaking my fist at heaven, I was still very devastated and sad and in absolute grief for many, many months, even years. And it's still quite intermittent. Yeah. But I have the knowing behind the suffering now, which makes it more of a conscious awareness. And yeah. I think that initiation is when people climb into these life experiences. And like you said, a lot of us don't take that self-responsibility because we believe life is happening to us rather than us happening our life or creating our life. Yeah. And so crossing that threshold into knowing, there is no such thing really as loss. We don't ever lose anything. And then we start to awaken other people to that, but it still doesn't make the human part of it any easier. And I think that don't you think that's what the Magdalene is? She teaches us how to be fully human and not judge ourselves. Yes. Because I was in a lot of judgment back then about myself, being alone and pregnant and single and very religious. And honestly, I got disfellowship from my church, and there were a lot of shameful things that happened, but my heart was never so connected to my Creator than it was during that time, to that point in my life. So I was learning something deeper about mistakes and shame. And it would be many years before I could really process it. But let me ask you this. With this Rose Council of Light, or the Sacred Rose Mystery School lineage that you're talking about, can you kind of explore that a little bit with me? Like because I'm very left-brained. I flip back and forth, right? I like to climb in and like dissect things. For people who may not be as versed in like mystery school, I understand what mystery schools are, but I want you to hear your definition, because I, in my pilgrimages and in my readings and research, I've come to know that Christ and Mary Magdalene We have those whole lost years of Christ where we don't have any, we don't have any canonized text around like biblical or any other around what he was up to for 20 plus years, right? And many now know that, there's legends and things like that, but there's also a knowing that comes through that he was learning these things. He was part of these mystery schools, and that inquisitiveness or that exploration or that soul, I guess you could say soul instruction comes through for many people, but they just don't know how to place it. So take us through your understanding of the mystery school.
Sure. So very specifically, the rose, as we all know, is beautiful, powerful, and is the queen of the plant kingdom. And the rose represents the divine feminine in oneness. So this concept for me, the reason I say oneness, is because at the moment, our planetary core heart has taken a step back into the fifth dimensional frequency of sacred union. So healed sacred masculine, healed sacred feminine, and coming together in this point of Christed light in the center as such. So the rose is an incredibly ancient galactic lineage of ancient mothers. And going back to my story of my experience, my initiation 12, 13 years ago, my direct connection at that point was from Venus. So my daughter is a high priestess of Venus, including myself as well. And this is the Venusian Sisterhood of the Rose, which is part of the Rose Sisterhood. So around our incredible universe, there was this beautiful creation. And I'm trying to make it simple. And these beautiful beings came together to create this temple on our earth. And through the Syrian gateway and through the Venusian gateway, so Venus, there's this beautiful creational pillar of the rose that came into this planet through the crystalline core of this planet and matrix. And the most the temple that we know of more recently, or the land, was Lemuria, where they came in and they created this incredible sacred rose. Mystery school is really a beautiful chalice, a container to develop and advance, to get more deeply connected to our inner love, to the Christ nature inside of us, and to be connected to Source and all that is. And so this is where my understanding, that's quite a general definition, but that was my experience of receiving this daughter who was reminded me of my Venusian sisterhood of the Rose sisterhood. And then since then, so for example, let's come back to Mary Magdalene, because she plays a huge part. And she, for me, is this multidimensional avatar that came here more recently than others, not more recently, but more profoundly. So we really remember her. We know Yeshua, we know him, and we know that they were the divine Sophia Christ sacred union couple. They came here to walk together, to literally infuse the body of the earth with love, with unconditional love, with sacred union, and with co-creation. So sacred union is about the divine masculine and the divine feminine that exists within each one of us. Now, the reason I feel that my Magdalene flame is awakened, and it is my soul's mission to walk this path, is that the deepest core wound that we have and are experiencing at the moment is the separation between the male and the female, masculine, feminine, this betrayal, this deep violation that we've placed upon the other. So we've had this separation. And this deep wound of separation has given rise and has given space to, forms of Islam, Christianity, and other religions that have taken the stories into a place of power over others, where they've changed the story. There's been a change, a separation. So coming back to the Sacred Rose Mystery School, I use this terminology because this came to me and it made me feel contained. It made me feel like that I would be able to connect to these mentors, to this part of myself that would remind me of who I truly was, to remind me to find love in those deep, 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 difficult states of being. So Mary Magdalene is this incredible avatar who came onto our planet, and she's still present within all of us. We're all one. But I like talking about her as, as well as this other, because it makes me feel like I've got a friend.
Yeah.
And that she was here, been to this place.
She's very relatable, and she was visceral.
Right.
We have her record, right? We have her through the Nag Hammadi's text. We have her voice. We have, at least through written word, but her energy, it's so interesting. I've told people this many times, but my whole life I felt a connection to her, but it's been really, really strong. Undeniably, mystically strong the last 2 years, to where I had to literally go on these pilgrimages because I'm like, what is this? It makes sense to me that you're saying that we're kind of going through this dimensional healing within the planet, because as you're saying, each of us hold the masculine and feminine, and we've been taught that they're too polarized, so we can't heal it within ourselves, both the feminine within men and the masculine within women. I think because I wanted to always feel connection. Every soul does, and disease is always at the root of disconnection, or disconnection is at the root of all disease. But it feels like that's what Mary Magdalene was. She was the feminine Christ, if you will, and that they needed to be together, because even in Christian texts we read, neither is the man without the woman or the woman without the man in the Lord. So the Lord is both masculine and feminine. That is our Lord. Our Lord is Jesus. That doesn't diminish Jesus's role, but he was always pointing to her, and he was always pointing to women. And I think what got written out of the Christian texts were these followers of there were female disciples, and Mary was the apostle to the apostles. So if we're just looking at it strictly from what religions have done, not to mention humanity in general, but like you said, religions changed the story to keep power and control into the hands of men. And that's where everything has gone out of balance, because most wars have started over religious views, holy wars, if you will. It's still happening all over the world. Islam, Muslim, there's the Christian and Buddhist sort of gap, right? So creating oneness within each being is what is going to heal. It won't just be a top-down approach to, this is the way it is, everyone, follow this group, right? It's heart's awakening. For women, that womb space awakening. And I want to talk to you about that because, and I know I'm jumping around, but I want to talk to you about the union within. And when I met you and you took us through a Rose Pass yoga session, I had been going through a yoga teacher training and had really been diving into yoga and understanding it. And that was so incredible that you can literally activate things within your being to forge those connections and to awaken dormant pieces within your DNA. For the person who maybe can't take these pilgrimages or don't have access to all of these things, what, in terms of learning from high vibe spiritual teachers or having vision quests and things like that, how's the average beautiful soul forge that connection? And especially for women in that womb space, that cradle of creation, that, literally, the shape of an egg, right? That Mary Magdalene carries that golden egg as a symbol. How do we foster that? How do we let that express and connect?
So, as you mentioned, Mary Magdalene is of the body. She is visceral. She is here right now. And part of her magic and her healing and alchemy is that we come back to the body. So, in a message today, Mary Magdalene was speaking about to find one's own unique nature, our true essence. We need to be in nature. We need to step out in nature and create space for this. So part of the work that I share is the Grail mysteries, seated deeply within the body of Mary Magdalene, and this was recognized by ISIS. So going back to the mystery schools, even if you're an avatar like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, these incredible beings like ourselves, we're still going through this ascension process or integration in this soul embodiment. So we learn information like Jesus. He learned all of this information. He learned about all the religions. He learned everything, the philosophy. He went to India. He studied with, what's his name? We studied
A yogi, right?
Yeah.
Basically, he studied yoga.
Yeah, so he and also Mary Magdalene, and so this lineage of learning within this sacred chalice at the sacred mystery school is why this is coming back up again, because we're still learning and remembering the importance and the incredible nature of our bodies. So going back to your question, for me, it's really going back to simple. The healing is within us. We can have these incredible mentors, these inspirational ceremony circles, time in church, walking upon the land. We must take that internal step to create space for ourselves. So Mary Magdalene is the Holy Grail, and Isis recognized this as the Magdalene flame that exists within Mary Magdalene and within every woman. In every body, we have the cellular structure, the Holy Grail, and as you said before, through these activations within our mystery school teachings, we activate our DNA. We connect with the lineage of our sovereignty. And coming back to simplicity, if you haven't got all of this lovely people pilgrimage, stepping into nature literally aligns you to the incredible harmonics and the coding of our own nature through the plants, through the earth, through the trees. Even if you're in a city, going to a park and just being and observing and feeling and sensing what it is to be in the body. So ascension is not about, because what happened for me actually was that I was born very awake and went through the descending process very consciously, which was very painful. And my awakening was very highly advanced in that the octave and the frequency was pretty high, and I was very happy there. But in the surroundings that I was in, it was very challenging for people, very challenging for family. And I have been then ascending through a kind of process of descension. So what I've come to realize is that something that I really resonate with is soul embodiment. So through our body, through loving ourselves, healing, going deeply in through the light, into all of our darkness, all into the shadow, into those wounds and shames, into that ancestral blood healing realm, we can find ourselves. We begin only when we step our feet onto the earth and make a decision within us that we are worthy of love. We are worthy of being here. And not only that, I hope that you'll hear the songs of love from the Sisterhood of the Rose, that you are meant to be here. You absolutely have a purpose. And without you, this whole planetary collective consciousness would not be united. So that's how we begin. you come back, and if you're lucky and you stay in that park and you go there every week, you'll suddenly notice there are other women there crying, not knowing what to do. And you speak. You might bump into someone, a yoga teacher, and they say, oh, there's this workshop happening down there. You can, and it really, really is an internal choice shift, an incredible devotion to say, I am love. This is the path of Magdalene. It is the path of love. It is the Christed path, and it is who we are in our true essence.
I love that. That's so beautiful. When I was talking to Hira, she talked about, Jesus and Mary Magdalene were teaching the way, in quotes, the way. And I loved how she sort of like called me out, because I'm like, so wouldn't you just say that the way is just love? And she's like, that's part of it. But with love, as I've been processing, because she said it's light, it's peace, it's all these things, and love is part of it. And for me, I'm trying to learn to love better because I feel like if I don't really, come into that or allow it for myself. And it's been a journey, a hell of a journey, to try to really love and accept myself, especially with what I'm going through in my life right now. I'm in I could potentially be in another shame process because I'm going through a divorce, and, I'm taking a little sabbatical from some of the dogma and programming that I've had in my life. And it's just another invitation to step into something new and to, as you're saying, if I don't get my feet in the earth, if I don't step into the shadows and look at those wounds and go, what is this? And is this true? Is this really my birthright to live in a not enough shame-based things dictated to me, not having my soul sovereignty, not having a voice, not stepping into my full spiritual gifts and power? Like, is that really my reality? Because all in the name of God and obedience. And I'm looking at that as a collective wound, not just my own, and going, no, that's what's shifting on the earth. And so for me, it's like, how do I love more? How do I love what you're saying about, even if you don't live near nature. I'm looking out my window right now. I live at the mouth of a canyon. I could drive 5 minutes and be immersed in rivers and streams and forests and beautiful mountains and lakes and crystal blue and all of that. I could do that, but I don't always do that. It's just, I get my head in a project or meeting the needs and demands of my life. But I love what you're saying about just be and observe, and step out of the rat race, really. Do you think that, I know that could be a very beautiful and powerful way to foster that, those activations and come back into your being and claiming that soul sovereignty and hearing your soul voice. My other thing is, how does love play into that? Because I'm thinking, I could be sitting out in nature. I'm just being totally transparent here. I could be sitting out in nature, or I could be in a really high vibe retreat, and I could be experiencing something really beautiful. And then what comes like skating in is get back to work, or you don't have time for this, or it's almost like also a belief of, I don't deserve to feel this. And I know it's generational. I know it's not coming from anything but old programming. Or I'm not being productive enough, because that's how I've learned to base my worth is on productivity.
Yes.
And so I'm just wondering how, because when I'm around you, and the second I saw you and was with you, I'm quite empathic with people. Like I've been blessed with this just discerning ability to just be with someone and understand their light level. And with you and with Hira, I was like, oh my gosh, these women are like, they get it. Very embodied, very, very embodied, very inspiring. And it isn't, I mean, you had a lot of really profound things to share at the retreat, but it was more just like your essence. I'm like, can I just stand by you? Like, and when we climbed the tour, and I have this beautiful picture of you that I'll probably post, I was just like, yep, that's what it means. Like what you're saying is just these harmonics and this coding in our very natures is activated in the earth and with the earth. How does the love come into play? How does the love stream into us? How do we allow that for ourselves? How, and I'm going to a how, right? Because that's my left brain coming in, but we get programmed into a corner, and we feel paralyzed in knowing, how do we do this? Like, how do we make this happen?
Yeah. So we are, we have to create space. The first aspect that I would share in work environments. So I share retreats, Rose Priestess retreats, and work with women individually and do pilgrimages. And like I've already said, the first thing I do is we go into nature. We touch the earth. There's another big piece of this work of working in nature is the shamanic mantrika essence of the Magdalene flame. So this is the aspect of us that gives over those parts of us that are struggling to let go. Those parts of us that are not finding it very easy to drop into the depth and the beauty of the fountain of life, our womb, a creative vortex, and be there. Be in that still, dark, golden light. So by bringing yourself into nature, all I can say is that no one else outside of you can say how it will be for you. But you have to make that step daily. I am going to make myself between 12 and 1 o'clock. This moment I go out in nature. This is what I'm doing. I don't care where my head's at. If it's saying I can't, I will be doing it. And in that process of making these little steps and changes, we begin to have the revelation and the divine remembrance and the sacred union within us. Now, the reason I mentioned part of the work that I'm sharing is because I've been through, and still will always advance through, a very deep healing alchemical process. And I received blessed wisdom codes from Isis, the Ankh of Life, and the Grail mysteries, the Avalonian traditions, the Lemurian traditions, and the medicine of the rose. These incredible teachings and techniques, both from mentors like who are alive and through what I call the Sisterhood of the Rose, which is all inclusive of the angelic, the galactic, the stellar, the shamanic. And so it is really important, once you've taken that step, to create space for yourself, to be open to receiving from others. And that might be to begin yoga. As you said, I share something called Rose Womb Passes, which is actually something I received through this rose lineage. And it's breath work, movement, and affirmation.
It's beautiful. I felt like that was one of the whole reasons I was called to Glastonbury to do that, is to experience those rose passes with you. It was beautiful.
And so Glastonbury is where the sacred Grail mysteries are held. Here, this essence is where the masculine and feminine unite. And here in this land, it's just full of this incredible consciousness of the Grail and the divine blood of our nature, the royal mysteries blood. And going back to simple, seek new ways of loving yourself. So yoga classes, I really recommend that people begin to use the voice to go and have massages, to share their creativity more openly, and just step by step, even if it's just beginning, the first day is just to put in your diary 1 day a week where you go out in nature. the second week, second month, you begin to write in a day where you can journal about how you feel, about what creativity is within you, what you're feeling really challenged by. And then, if there's other people that can support you and other tools and practices, this is where the lineage of the Sacred Rose Mystery School comes in. And this is where, for example, my mission is here to guide women in these intimate women's journeys through practices. So some of the work is the jade egg practice. A big piece that's been coming through in my life is the voice of the Magdalene. So these are light language sound transmissions that I do either in front of an audience, ceremonially, or in a retreat. And I also work with individuals through a retreat where they begin to ignite their soul language, their light language through this Magdalene consciousness. And the codes and the frequencies within this transmission and activation is incredible. It's so beautiful.
I remember you were singing or chanting or doing something like that when we were in the Magdalene Chapel actually it was very near the Glastonbury Abbey when we found that mosaic of Mary Magdalene. Yeah. And I was just mesmerized by, I'm like wanting to do like an on-demand concert, like right here and now. Like you could even feel free to.
We can definitely do some sound. And so this is a lovely way to receive, especially when we've got, even if the mind is saying whatever it's saying, you receive it. And as a woman, it is deeply important at this time to allow yourself to receive and to bring your awareness back into the root, into your womb space, into this incredible connection to life and to the cycles of life, and into this moon cycle, and to these new blood codes that are very present. And going back to love is a word that can be interpreted by every single person in a different way. For me, love is everything. It is pure source. It is everything that merges all of our little particles of light together. It is the highest form of oneness and creation. We are all love. And really, I would invite each individual just to create stillness, be in nature, and invite your experience of your love and living from love. Because I cannot describe it, but I can be it. And that is what...
Yes.
This level of, the Christ consciousness, Mary Magdalene, these incredible beings, we have them all over the planet. We're all this, but there's people who are, these incredible beacons of light and way showers who are simply in that state. And I'd love to mention just really quickly, if you have the company of a child, if you have had company of a very high vibrational child, you can then get the sense of the power of love, because we have not been programmed to be able to receive love because we are trying to intellectualize it. We call it love, and then one person thinks one thing, one person thinks another. It's beyond that. So through embodying and creating space, through intention, through invocation, through prayer, to experience and feel love, then you will begin to be able to relate, to commune and connect, to reorientate yourself, to proclaim your love within you. Then we can,
I was going to say it's so sacred for each individual how it expresses. Even though there's like unity consciousness and we're all trying to go into oneness, it's very individual in the way it expresses through each soul. And that's the beauty of this allowing of different ways of being, really. Where honestly, if you talk to some people, they're wanting to homogenize as groups and identify in groups and be the same person, basically. If you're not with us, you're against us. And that was never Christ or the Magdalene's way. It was awaken your you-ness, your essence, right? And let the love express through you as an art, as a way, as the way through you. I love everything you're saying about love, because you're right. I think what I'm trying to do is intellectualize it with you and say, hey, how do you do this? How do you how? And really it must be experienced, right? We have to experience. We have to create the space, is what you're saying, is like create the space through nature, through journaling, maybe through meditation, prayer, invocation, communion, opening to receive, basically. And then let it be. Don't try to overthink it. Just let it express in you and work in you, and then journal about it and let it come stronger and stronger, and don't judge it and don't put it in a box. I was trained and programmed my whole life to not look beyond the mark and to keep with the group and to stay in the mainstream and to be with the norm, or I was going to be deceived or heretical or off the path. And that's what I'm honestly breaking out of and awakening to, is that the path is a lot broader than I thought it was. And it's very sacred to each person.
Yeah.
When you said something about proclaiming, so you talked about prayer, meditation, invocation, and communion. When you say something about proclaiming, did you mean through soul expression, or did you mean actually speaking out, or maybe both?
I think both. I mean, literally by claiming that you are meant to be here on this planet is going to shift your vibration into a completely different space and state. And taking these vows of what you're going to agree with yourself, and walking upon this earth, knowing that you are beautiful and that women's bodies are incredible, and to say this, I proclaim, whatever you want to say, words, sing, sound, feel it. It then breaks these gently opens and breaks these barriers and this protection that we have around us. That have been really beautifully put in place because of the difficulties and the challenges of being such open beings of light. But they really are not serving us anymore. So by saying that we're meant to be here and that we open to receive love, that's the energy that's going to start coming to you. And yes, in that, you'll give rise to, I'm not worthy, it can't happen to me, it's outside of me, why is it happening to that person, not me, why does that person have this beautiful life and I don't? All of this will rise up, and this is perfect. And through love, we will allow that to be all that it is. By identifying, perceiving, observing, we allow it into our body. And this is where we have this incredible mysteries of the Sophia Rose, where we bring that into the body, because we go, actually, I'm going to invoke my Sisterhood of the Rose, or whoever it is that you feel you want around you, and I'm held, and I can do this. And it's really, I also invite the people ask for guidance, support, and join in circles of sisterhood where you feel guided, to listen to incredible people like yourself who are bringing forth material to reawaken these seeds of truth inside of us. Yeah.
I think that right there has made the biggest difference for me in my awakening is to get out of the bubble, the cultural bubble, and really childhood indoctrination to a degree. And I don't say that against my parents. I mean, my mother was always one to just be like, go find yourself, go find your truth. But to really just connect to other women who were these circles, both metaphorically and literally, of women who just are like, hey, I don't have to conform to this tradition because my soul knows something different. And that reinforcement for me has been so validating and so spiritual. And it's allowed me to really have a voice. I wouldn't even be doing this interview with you if I hadn't been emboldened and supported and cradled by other women who were like, go do this. Right. So including my own mother, who I was talking at my mother and I were up talking till 1 a.m. on the phone 2 nights ago. And just, there are some people who are threatened by the advancement of and the evolution of this movement because it wants to awaken in them, but they don't know how to place it in their current paradigm. They have a deep fear they're going to become lost or stray from the way or the path or whatever. And they're afraid to have the visions and the gifts and the openings because number one, mostly they don't feel worthy of it. And they think they're stepping outside of their domain or what they're supposed to be doing or the set of rules, right? Or worse, they don't have the authority. That is soul crushing to not claim your own soul sovereignty and your own soul authority.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chloe, what would you leave us with? Because everything you've said is just gem after gem after gem. And I want to bring you to Utah and I want you to do a retreat with me at some point because I know a lot of women who would just absolutely love what you're doing and they need it. I actually went, when you were talking about the vows, I went and taking your own vows. I went to a yoga retreat with my daughter a few weeks ago. Actually, she wasn't that one. That's one she didn't come to with me, but she usually comes, we go together. But this particular retreat, we laid down on a big long piece of paper, basically, and someone traced our outline of our body. And then we wrote our wounds on the body, our spiritual wounds, our social wounds, our physical wounds, the scars, the beliefs. And then we wrote the power. Like I have it. I'm like looking at it right now. I cut it out and hung it in my office in the closet. It's quite sacred to me. But one of the reason I bring this up is because that's what yoga's done for me, is to teach me to love my body and be in my body. And there was a woman at the retreat who I hadn't met before. And she was, I think, coming up on either her 15 or 20-year wedding anniversary. And she said to her husband, I want us to go renew our vows. I want us to do that. And he's just like, why should we do that? We love each other and whatever. She's like, I want to do this publicly. And so she's like, I don't know why it became so important to me to do this. Well, she was out in nature and she was actually in a poppy field, which is in Alpine in a meadow near where I live. And these beautiful spring poppies were blossoming. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden the spirit said to her, the vows that you seek to make are not with another person. The vows that you seek to make are to your own soul. And so I believe she said on the spot, she made a ring out of something. I don't know if it was a weed or a root, but she made a ring for herself and she made vows to her own soul. And even in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, there are vows. But anyway, so she did this, and I thought, wow, because not to diminish this, union with her husband, but really that sacred union within and honoring that. And then she was able to come back into her marriage and her relationship renewed, better, more equipped to release wounds and to answer the call of their union, right? So I just thought that was beautiful. And I just wanted to share that because we were all just like, wow, we want to do that. We want to go out in a poppy field. And, to a degree, we only are as strong as the relationship with others as we are with the relationship to ourselves and the God within and the Christed consciousness as we share. And the Magdalene, I loved how you talked about the Magdalene flame because that's what I experienced. I didn't know that that's what I was experiencing in these hot spots on the earth. And I've prayed ever since to bring that feeling back to me, to where I am now. And the feeling is like, it's like exactly what you're saying, Chloe. If I want that feeling back, I have to create space for it because it's always with me. I need to open myself more and create that time to let that come back in. So I felt it in Sedona. I felt it in Glastonbury. I felt it in France. All very, very strong energy vortexes and areas on the earth where these grids are very strong and this energy is planted and very, very, the crystalline grids and things are very strong. And I'm like, I want to bring that here to this space, to me, to my being, to recharge that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a roundabout way to say what, if anything else, would you be able to share with us as we round out our discussion on this beautiful Sisterhood of the Rose, this beautiful circle of light? I love how you talked about you can invoke that, you can ask for that, or, it's not necessarily praying to those beings. It's just, hey, I invoke this, I claim this, I ask for this. And we have every right to do that, right?
Totally. We invoke the presence of Mary Magdalene, the Rose Council of Light, is sealed in this divine protection and divine love is a really good way to ground and to bring forth, because we have to take, again, this step of initiating that we are creating our reality, and that these incredible aspects of ourselves, these beings of light, can come in so far, but if we ask and open and turn toward them as bridges of light, as a priestess, then the connection can be so much stronger. We can really perceive such a different level. And I feel like to culminate, really, the message from Mary Magdalene is to really bring home this sacred union within. And yes, there are certain beings, such as yourself and myself, but it's very important for us to actually go to these portals, to France, and Le Bain, then the Chateau, Glastonbury, Avalon, Sedona, Mount Shasta, these incredible places. In this now moment, Mary Magdalene is really deeply sharing that we are to find that within us now. And that's where the magic is. That is where the healing and the transformation is. To find that deep depth of connection to our own divinity, to our own sacred masculine spirit, to our own sacred feminine spirit, and to the joy, into the joy of who we are. And so with all of this going on around, in my area anyway, there's a lot of change. There's so much information and change, and a lot coming up to the surface, a lot of shadow and darkness. And one of them is about traveling. It's about fuel and pollution and this kind of thing. So sometimes we just have to say where I'm at is actually perfect. And this is where we can find this deep peace. And we find this peace by saying where I am right now is divine, is the vortex. It is the sacred union. This is this marriage. And I think the story you shared was so gorgeous. I love this so much. It's so me. So I love it. Thank you. So inspirational. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm sure everyone will just have gone into poppy fields with you as you spoke. But really, let's come back to what I said at the beginning. Find a slot in your diary. If you're menstruating, even more beautiful, go into the land, wherever you are, and create space for yourself. Invoke this incredible invocation that you are unique and this is what you're meant to be. You are a petal of the rose of life. And just breathe. Don't know any breathing techniques, go online. There's beautiful practitioners. I've got some stuff online. It's breathing, just breathe. The breath is the life. And here then drop deep into the deep God, Goddess, all that is within us. And that's what I'm hearing the message of within this eclipse season is actually the alchemy of this now moment in this time and space is that wherever we are is perfect, whole and complete. There is nothing to be done. But create that space. Have a little bit of space from being the mother, from being the lover, from being the mother, the grandmother, from the worker, the proactive, because we've got a huge change coming up for women where we're going to have to really go in deeply into our inner moon temple and remember our own cycles. And this is another piece, which is a huge inspiration of mine now, really. And just to mention a little bit, for example, our clock, time clockwise, goes in a certain direction. The actual moon rotates the opposite way around the planet. So certain cyclical things that literally do not harmonize with our blueprint, the harmonics of the earth, and literally mean that we are continually running on empty or running outside of our natural inner cycles of our nature, of our beauty, of our blossoming. So this is another piece, I said, but it just will begin to open for those who are ready for it when you go out and you create space for yourself and you connect into this incredible space of the womb. Breathe.
Yeah, that it really is so simple, isn't it? In theory. Yeah. It's
Very
beautiful. Well, this has been very enlightening. And, I know because we have the spectrum of listeners, we have the very deep truth seekers who just, who are kind of like me. They're just like, okay, I don't care what the language is. Like, I'm resonating here. Like, this is different language, but it's totally resonating. And then you may have more people who are listening who are like, I'm not sure where to place this in my belief structures. And here's the thing. There are things that transcend thought. There are things that transcend language and definitions. And at the onset of our discussion, Chloe, you mentioned that, you were without that programming of this is wrong or labeling or whatever. And you stepped right into having this beautiful mystical, I define it as a mystical experience with the Sisterhood of the Rose, the Council of Light. And so I think when you were talking about a little child shall lead them, right? If you are in the company of a child, they don't have that programming yet, unless we give it to them, right? They are an open source. And it's beautiful to see what they discern and feel and to observe that. I have a 6 and a 5-year-old right now. And sometimes I'm like wanting them to come to my side and get it. But then I'm like, no, I need to learn from them. I need to be at the park and I need to observe them instead of be on my phone and try to solve the next crisis or post the next thing, right? It's just it's just about being alive and being in our own skin and loving life and feeling the oneness and the joy and the journey and even the depth that you're talking about, even that darkness. There can be a measure of, oh, I'm in darkness. I don't need to identify with it, but it is part of what I'm experiencing. And just that self-compassion, just fostering a constant stream of self-compassion. For me, that is my goal right now, especially with everything happening in my life, setting really strong boundaries and going through a divorce and restructuring my beliefs and coming back into being. It's my life lesson right now. And so I get to process it with people on this podcast and in these circles. So thank you for helping to facilitate that for me last year, because that was truly a point of awakening. Experiencing your yoga and your way with the rose. And the rose has shown up for me over and over and over in my life. And I actually named my company Blue Rose Wellness back in almost 20 years ago, not knowing what the rose would continue to come to mean to me. And I love how you've defined it. It's just part of the symbol of the ancient mothers. And so anyway, I could keep going on, but I just love what you've shared. And I love you and your work. And I honor you for being the catalyst for my part of my own awakening and for now others as they get to listen to your, and I would love a recording or something, if you're willing, that we could work into this podcast of a sample of some of the beautiful vocal intonations and the voice of the Magdalene that you share, because I would love for some of our listeners to experience a sampling of that. Doesn't have to be on demand right now, but maybe we could work that in at some point.
I can definitely record something and then send it to you to bring as part, just to end the session. Absolutely.
Oh, that would be a gift. Thank you, Chloe, and have a blessed evening. I know it's evening for you there in England, so sweet dreams. And thank you so much again for your influence today.
Oh, thank you, darling. It's been beautiful to connect once again.
Magdalena, Maria, Magdalena, Maria, Magdalena, Maria, Magdalena, Maria, Magdalena, Maria, Magdalena, oh, oh,
So Chloe's really got some beautiful languaging, almost poetic to listen to her. Phrases like cellular structure in us and the sacred grail mysteries. I mean, just all these fun mystical terms. I just love listening to the voices of other women who are engaged in lifting this planet and finding the light codes within them and activating them and giving themselves their own permission to shine and be in their space. Everything that she was sharing about the rose and the ancient mothers and that sisterhood, we can have that and we can bring that here to earth. And I truly believe that. And that's why so many are awakening to this quote unquote Magdalene consciousness, which is simply just answering the call of your heart, listening, checking in, going into the depth, being who you are, and honestly just letting yourself express. We're halfway through through our 6-part Mary Magdalene series. I think we've got 3 more. We're just getting going, actually. And this is a conversation I'll continue as long as I have breath in me, but especially these next few episodes you're not going to want to miss. Again, please share this episode with your friends. Let's engage in the Facebook community, Women Seeking Wholeness Facebook group. I'm getting going on Instagram again. Share this, subscribe, and we will talk with you next Wednesday.